The strike that shook the bunkers. Archie Bunker goes into what he calls a perfectly normal week with the kind of swagger that only comes from a man who believes the world runs on his routines. He's got his job, his chair, his cigar, his opinions, and, most importantly, his certainty that nothing big is going to change. That certainty is exactly what makes everything that follows hit harder, because the moment a working man says, "Relax, it won't happen," life tends to deliver the telegram that says the opposite. In the Bunker household, stability is not a calm lake. It's a boiling pot with a lid that Archie keeps pressing down with brute confidence. And this time the lid starts to rattle. The evening begins with Archie and the family planning a wedding anniversary party, the kind of event that should feel like a small celebration of endurance. Two people making it through decades of bills, arguments, and the everyday mess of being a family. Edith wants the party to be warm and simple. Gloria wants it to be joyful. And Mike wants it to be anything that doesn't explode into a political debate before the first guest arrives. Archie, however, sees the party as proof of something larger. Proof that his way of life still counts. That his hard work still means something. That the years he put in at the plant should buy him respect and security. He's riding on a rumor from the workplace that everything is fine. That management can't afford a strike, so there won't be one. Archie repeats this the way some people repeat prayers, because he needs it to be true. He needs the idea of no strike, not just for his paycheck, but for his identity. Then Edith opens a telegram, and the air in the house changes. The message is simple and brutal. Archie's union says he has to go on strike on Monday. It's the kind of news that doesn't just threaten income. It threatens the entire emotional structure Archie uses to stand up straight. Edith freezes with the paper in her hand, caught between honesty and fear. Gloria realizes immediately what this will do to her father's mood and to their plans. Mike, practical as ever, senses the economics of the moment. A strike means uncertainty, and uncertainty means the household's balance gets shaky fast. Edith's instinct is to protect the family's happiness for one more night, to let the party happen and postpone the storm. But everyone knows you can't keep weather outside by closing the curtains. When the guests arrive, neighbors, friends, the familiar orbit of people who understand Archie's world, Archie performs confidence like a stage act. There's laughter, food, conversation, and the usual sparring that happens whenever Archie starts turning a gathering into a lecture. He's determined to keep things celebratory, partly because the party matters, and partly because he doesn't want anyone seeing him blink. In his mind, the strike is still something that might be avoided, something that might be negotiated away before it becomes real. He talks about union tactics like he's teaching a class. You threaten to strike, you bargain, you settle in the middle, you don't actually strike because striking is messy, and Archie hates mess unless he's the one making it. But the people around him keep poking holes in his certainty. The union leaders call. The workplace rumor mill churns. Archie's friends react with their own perspectives, some supportive, some skeptical, some more worried than Archie wants to admit. Even the casual jokes carry a hint of pressure because everyone knows what's at stake. Archie tries to keep control by keeping the conversation loud and the mood busy, but the tension finds its way through anyway. In that living room, the strike is no longer an abstract bargaining tool. It's a ticking clock sitting beside the birthday candles and the sandwiches. As the strike becomes unavoidable, the Bunker home shifts from party planning to survival math. The first thing that happens is not a dramatic collapse. It's a slow tightening. Archie is suddenly home all day, restless and irritated, because he isn't built for stillness. Work, even work he complains about, gives him structure and pride. Without it, he becomes a man pacing his own house like it's a cage. Edith, who has spent years adapting to Archie's rhythms, now has to adapt to a new rhythm. Archie underfoot, Archie watching every penny, Archie snapping at small things because the big thing feels too heavy to say out loud. Their normal arguments about food, about chores, about who stands where in the kitchen start to carry the weight of money fear, even when nobody says money fear directly. The strike starts producing small humiliations that pile up. Shoes wear out, but fixing them costs money. Food becomes repetitive because cheaper meals stretch farther. Edith mentions serving spaghetti again. Another night, another pot, another reminder that variety is a luxury. Conversations about dinner become conversations about budgets. Archie tries to keep his pride intact by pretending he's not worried, insisting he's the head of the house, insisting everything is under control. But the more he insists, the more obvious it becomes that control is exactly what he doesn't have. Mike, trying to do what he thinks is responsible, looks for part-time work to help the household. He doesn't frame it as charity. He frames it as practicality. But to Archie, it lands like an insult. Archie hears, "You can't provide," even if nobody says those words. So when Mike comes home without getting hired, Archie reacts with that familiar combination of harshness and insecurity, mocking Mike's lack of qualifications while simultaneously refusing to admit he might actually need help. He wants to be the man who carries the family, not the man who gets carried. This is the tragedy and comedy of Archie Bunker. He could be stubbornly devoted to his role as provider, even when the economy and the system are actively sawing at the legs of that role. Meanwhile, Edith faces her own quiet crisis. She has always been the emotional glue of the family, the one who smooths the edges and absorbs the shockwaves. But the strike forces her to confront realities she usually tries not to speak aloud. She remembers times when Archie earned less, but somehow they ate more, saved more, and felt less pressure. Now, the money is tighter even though Archie has worked for years. Edith doesn't speak in economic theory. She speaks in household memory. Her questions are simple and devastating. How do we get here? How did working hard stop being enough? Where did the security go? Those questions hang in the air like smoke because they're not only about Archie, they're about a whole class of families trying to understand why the numbers don't add up anymore. And the strike isn't only financial, it's psychological. Archie is not used to feeling powerless. On the picket line, he's one of many, and the frustration turns into anger. He comes home sore and irritable, telling stories about small conflicts and slights that make him feel disrespected. Every minor irritation becomes proof to him that the world is turning upside down. His pride is bruised not just by the lack of work, but by the sense that decisions are being made somewhere above him, and he has to suffer the consequences in his own living room. The story also follows Edith stepping into a kind of growth that Archie both needs and fears. When money is short, choices narrow, and the household has to find ways to cope. Edith begins engaging with work and responsibility outside her usual comfort zone. In the process, she shows a strength that has always been there, but often overlooked: quiet competence, resilience, the ability to keep moving while the men argue about pride. Archie, however, struggles with that shift because it threatens the fragile story he tells himself, that he is the single pillar holding everything up. The more Edith demonstrates she can carry weight, the more Archie feels both relieved and diminished, and he doesn't know how to admit either emotion safely. As the episodes move forward, the strike becomes a stage for the show's core tension. The collision between Archie's rigid worldview and the reality that refuses to fit inside it. Archie wants simple rules: work hard, be loyal, earn respect, get paid enough to live. But the system around him is complicated. Employers negotiate, unions clash, costs rise, and families get squeezed. Archie talks about bargaining like it's a game, but it stops being a game when the grocery bill is due. He believes respect is earned, yet he also fears that respect has become something that could be withheld by people with more power and more money. There's also a social layer to the strike that cracks open the relationships in the neighborhood. Friends compare hardships. People adjust their own plans. One person's struggle becomes another person's inconvenience, and tensions flare in ways that feel uncomfortably real. Archie's pride doesn't let him ask for help easily, and his temper doesn't let him accept criticism kindly. Yet underneath the noise, the community dynamic is a reminder that working families are often held together by informal networks, borrowed favors, shared meals, small acts of support, because the formal systems aren't designed to cushion every fall. By the time you've lived through these beats with the Bunkers, the strike is no longer just a plot device. It's a pressure test. It tests Archie's identity as a provider, Mike's willingness to help even when it provokes conflict, Gloria's role as mediator in a household that keeps tilting toward chaos, and Edith's capacity to step forward when the situation demands more than patience and kindness. The humor is still there, sharp banter, awkward misunderstandings, everyday absurdity. But the humor sits on top of something heavier. The fear that if the paycheck stops, everything else might start collapsing in slow motion. And that's what makes this stretch of the story linger. It isn't only about whether Archie's union wins or loses, whether the strike ends quickly or drags on. It's about what happens inside a home when the outside world breaks its promises. It's about a man who insists he's not worried while his family quietly rearranges their lives around the possibility that he should be worried. It's about the fragile pride of working people who built their identities on labor, only to discover that labor doesn't guarantee stability the way it used to. The bunkers don't solve the economy in a living room, but they do what families always do. They fight, they adapt, they joke to survive, and they try, sometimes clumsily, sometimes tenderly, to hold on to each other while the pressure keeps rising.